Good morning, everyone. My name is Flicker, and today I'm going to be running straight to VR chat to jump over to a world that ended up being a fundamental part of my dreams. Because there was an entire section of my dreams that was based around my dad's house and everything, and how it became its own little place with a whole community of people branching off of it. How the room that was my bedroom over there just kind of ended up being like this open space, half decayed and exposed to the world. But then it ended up eventually evolving into this narrative about how enemies that can survive being frozen. Oh, it was so cool. So this other narrative started out with something really, really simple. You got this anomalous thing. Brutal, there's sewers. Invite plus. Trap portal. Oh. Oh my goodness, this stream log is gonna be nuts. Alright, so the first half of the dream log was basically just me at my dad's house, and there was this girl who was working on her project. I don't know if she was representative of me or someone else, but oh, she had so many different layers. Top layer had like the most progress on her project and whatnot. Oh. And then you could fall down to like the lower layers and there would be previous iterations. Someone else exploring that project as well. Fire, water, lightning. Pikmin elements of all things. Interesting. Might want to add that to the reference point list for elemental distribution and color-based ideas. Hmm. Hmm. Oh. In any case, hmm. Hmm. There hit a point in the dream where some anomalous toy was found, and it was you add water to something, and it eventually produced to like tiny model dinosaurs. These dinosaurs were made out of plants, and they kept growing. I tried to kill those things after they got to a pretty ridiculous size, because it's like, okay, this is getting beyond the scale of anything that we can handle, store, or keep in check, so let's just chop the heads off and then cut up the rest of the body. And I tried to do that, but eventually all the dinosaurs ended up trying to merge together because they were all made out of the same material with different DNA sequences for self-expression. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, get rid of that, get rid of that. But eventually it came back. Came back in a way that was just conceptually terrifying, but personally I wasn't scared of it because, well, I was viewing the story as a dream. Basically, since my dad's place had become this own little isolated chunk of whatever in the void, kind of falling through nothingness. And I had jumped from an exit vehicle back to that land. Fucking the progress of events was fucking wild. My man just started scaffolding stuff together while being so haphazard that he nearly fell off with like any anchor point 20 times. Oh, but then like skateboard and everyone working together to catch me mid like free fall. Ay ay ay. And that was me as protagonist, not me as person. So I usually hop between protagonist perspectives depending on like, okay, what's the sub story being involved here? Because there's usually like, okay, is the sub story involving me and the basic characters of me and my family and people important to me? Which that's where the dreams kind of started out. Then there was this girl. All right, so from living at my dad's house to meeting this girl with her project and going through the layers. She was sharing it with someone else too, but I definitely had a major attachment, and this girl was hella important to me. But it was also like not the kind of importance where I wanted to corrupt. It was more so the kind of importance where it was like, you do your thing, girl. You do your thing, and I'm gonna do my thing. Mega respect for you. Anyways, then I ended up walking over to my bedroom, which was absolutely in this section of the house that was collapsed and exposed to the open. The walls had been made out of like plank wood and tarps draped over. It had been raining, and it had all fallen over, but I still like crawled underneath and was trying to get it all set back up again. My dad parked a trailer next to me on the left and said he was going to get back around to building that up again. And there was something about section of the place or maybe some vehicle leaving. And I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm going back. And it's like, oh, great. So as we're free falling for like 10 seconds, you realize, ah, shit, the distance between isn't like 10 seconds worth. It's like 6 feet. And in the time frame we need to get there, we are not going to be able to land on top of like the closest landing point. We are going to miss. So we call out to someone who's still on that little chunk of void space, that little chunk of land in the middle of void space, and they start running around, dragging things into place while almost falling off multiple times. Then once they're ready, they just ride a fucking skateboard and launch themselves off into the distance, able to then catch themselves on a tree of like some other chunk of land that was relative to it, kind of like across the street almost distance. Hmm. Able to grab my player character, and then other people helped pull everyone back. Like, we got dragged into like the pool area, and then it got into like this little funny segment where the place kind of became its own little civilization with a whole bunch of different people there. And two of them went off to just have a good time, play in like the fancy relaxation area, only they ran into like other people who were already there, and it's like, shit, we don't have privacy. And there's all of that, and there's relaxation and community. And then we get to the kitchen thing, where I'm trying to pull from cupboards that are nested in trees for like some kind of dishes or whatnot. Because the freezer's full, the small freezer is full, and the big freezer isn't close enough for me to shove these things, these like growing plant dinosaurs, or sit back in. Definitely closer to the Velociraptor family, but one had like the frills of a lizard on the side of its face that would span out, and the other one had like water wings that were made of skin. And I tried to chop off their heads in order to try and kill them ahead of time before they got out of hand. But with how I had been holding them, they had started fucking, mating, reproducing, whatever, and also merging. So it's just like, I don't know what to do with that. Chop, 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 and get rid of the bits. But unfortunately, since I threw out the bits with the rest of the trash, and it was able to reattach and regrow and form into something else that wasn't dinosaur themed, but more like a general nuisance, malicious. It's like, well, shit. So that ended up at like the bottom of the floating land in the middle of the void. And then me and a few others were trying to strategize and whatnot. It's like, oh yeah, don't use this specific poison or potion. Don't let it get contaminated with the plants, because then they're going to become a threat. And whoop-de-doo, as it flowed along the water stream from it getting used and down to the bottom of the world, it's just like, oh yeah, no, it got mistaken for something else, and people tried to salvage it for resources and for their money and usage. Only guess what? It had gotten mixed in with the plants, and the plants, they now had a beautiful fucked up strategy, wherein this stuff would make them get frozen, kind of like slow down and everything, but they wouldn't be dead. And people would think, oh, there's this resource growing out of this. I can use it and eat a little. Only it would then reheat and spring back to action and life inside of someone else's body from no longer being quote unquote frozen, and would just start infesting and corrupting them. And eventually that just started spreading itself. It eventually got self-sentient and planned enough to where this sort of like evil plants were using the fact that they could enter this frozen state to travel across water on this little chunk of land that had become a kind of world of its own, and travel up from the bottom of the world all the way up to the peak, from like the South Pole to the North Pole, almost, to conquer and wipe out humans. And they succeeded. They succeeded. But then they started, in doing so and using identity and strategy and cognitive function, much like the humans, they realized, oh hey, we're acting like humans ourselves. We're a different species, but we're still taking on the same traits of civilization and everything. And for a while, everyone was fine with that because they were all living together, living fine, living well, and no one was dying or starving. But then, as the ruling class tried to branch off into, all right, let's create our little progenitor and make sure that after we're gone, there's someone to inherit the throne. From the bottom of the world up, people started fighting with each other, conflict, saying, I deserve to live more than you do. And it eventually became this whole kind of civil war. Speaking of, like, even the plant progenitors ended up turning into, instead of like a continuation of like genuine healthy coexistence, they ended up becoming more like a cancerous plague that ended up washing down and collapsing the structure from the top while it was already collapsing from the bottom from infighting. And this place, this abandoned sewer system type idea, was actually like a worldwide network that these plant creatures, plant people, whatever, were using to travel from like one end of the earth to the other. They would literally merge into each other and travel along these sewer systems as just shifting, moving vines to then go from like point A to point B. But as the internal conflict grew and everything, it discovered, hey, yeah, no, some plants actually decide to keep humans alive, and humans are fighting back now. And then it's just like, oh, great, so we've got a decaying system of plants that's got a cancer up top that's spreading and converting people into itself, and then a tribal human society down below that's trying to create order and fight back against the plants. But hey, oh hey, some people don't want to fall into their roles, and there's infighting there too. And people are being sacrificed, executed for breaking the rules and everything. But one friend managed to get her other friend's body out, and because of past history and lore of a time where there were actually humans living in peace with these like sentient plants and everything, and these sentient plant creatures, because the plants were looking more like monsters and everything, and the humans were looking like humans. But because the monster plants were like, the status quo was, okay, let's just eat the humans, no real human identity was persistently capable of emerging from it. The human identity that existed before it got eaten by the plants, because it was eaten violently and with the purpose of consuming and furthering its own existence. And the plants ended up becoming having their sentience, but never really carrying over any of the memories or knowledge of any previous human lives. But because this girl from the human society knew of plants and humans coexisting, she was able to bury her friend with a like seed of a plant that was allowed to like slowly envelop the body over time as it decomposed under the ground and reconstitute the memories and information and identity without without being forced into consuming that human body at a rapid pace to the point of destabilizing the previous structure and what value was withheld within. So we end up with this reincarnated human identity with the body and like one of these monstrous plants. Well, the old system monarchy is kind of crumbling down from the inside out due to this cancerous spread of absolutely batshit wild, crazy, insane people that are just pure white, but they've got like, but their eyes are like these rainbows that are pulsing. Like there's always something underneath, but then from the center of their eye and then outward, there would be like these pulses of different color, and they would just look completely insane. And so there's this subculture of plants, say, that are trying to preserve their sense of unity and community outside of and stay off the radar of the whole like upper surface world conflict. That remember the way things were before. There's like survivors of this whole conflict between the selfish and the selfless. The ones who believe that they can actually coexist without consuming each other, and those who wish to just endlessly feed this cycle of consumption between humans and plants. But the idea of humans and plants coexisting without consuming each other maliciously or for the purpose of furthering their own survival blindly is like its own niche subculture between these two hidden communities of like plants that just want to live, exist, and get along with each other, and humans that just want to live, exist, and get along with each other. Each have their own roles and everything. But this main character that was born a human rejected their role within their society and had their friend bury their body and let it be reconstituted into one of these plant monsters. And was completely different because she retained her memories of her previous life. She retained her memories and identity otherwise, and she was, in the terms of the story, someone who, if she could get back up to the top of everything and let herself integrate with the prime root, prime core that was producing all these issues and whatnot, like the previous leading algorithm and whatnot, that she could actually get things to work out. But as the cancer and plague were spreading down across the world, and these two little communities of people just wanting to live as themselves, even if they were different species from each other, they slowly started working together and fighting against this. But from within the plant community that's trying to do this, there would be new plants that are also eventually being born as this like progenitor cancer with the white surface and the crazy eyes. And so it was a rush against time to get this one little protagonist girl plant creature that could fly. Like, some of these plants could fly and everything, but they had to be pretty small in order to do that. And most people saw scale and size and power as more important than maneuverability, flight, and the ability to be above it all, not in the sense of social status, but in the sense of literally being able to fly over the chaos and get from point A to point B without dying to like everything below. And yeah, there was all of that, and the sewer system was a huge reference point because it's like it was a leftover from the plants that tried to live alongside and preserve humans. And it used the lore of this world too, because this brutalist sewers is upper class have pushed people out of the city, a human stage of that, before the plants ended up taking over. And then, eventually, once all the humans had been, like, sacrificed and reduced to nothing but fodder, at least for the ones that weren't being protected by plants, as that really, really, really niche subculture. This ended up becoming a travel system for the plants, the plant monsters, before everything fell apart. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Oh, and one of the perspectives I took from like one of those monster plant people that survived and everything, they literally had to flow down a river of carnage where dead bodies and shit, plants that fought each other were kind of slowly just getting mixed into the water, and they had to pretend to be dead and just try to. And their survival strategy wasn't, all right, let's fight anything that tries to kill us. It was, okay, things have gotten out of hand. I need to actually just pass for the dead in order to actually get away and get out of sight from all this carnage towards some kind of community that would actually be able to remember what it was like before we started trying to kill each other.